And I think WinCam is ready as well. So I'm going to call this evening's select board meeting for Monday, February 23rd to order. We're meeting on Zoom this evening due to the blizzard, joined by our town manager, Chris Senior, members Bill McGonigal, Anthea Brady, and Michael Benincourt. And Patty is our clerk, is assisting us with all the technology this evening. Paris Bayani will be joining a little bit later. So we're going to take a few business items out of order. We will follow the agenda, go through donations, the town manager.
Recording in progress.
Business agenda with a slightly different sequence that we will take up topics 3, 4, and potentially 5. And then when Paris joins, we will circle back to item 1 on the agenda. So with that, if we could start with donations, and then we'll move into Chris's report.
You're on mute.
Yes. And apologies, I'm just bringing up the right part of the packet. Move that we accept with gratitude an EEC stabilization grant of $13,720 for the Recreation Department Kid Connection WRAP EEC Child Care License for the month of February 2026.
Second.
Okay, we're going to roll call vote tonight. And I'll start with Anthea.
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Move that we accept with gratitude a $4,250 grant. Oh no. Hold on. Give me a minute. Sorry.
You got it.
I am the technical problem right now.
We heard you. $4,250 grant.
But I don't know what comes next.
Second installment from the Mount Vernon House to the Council on Aging for the Caregiver Support Program.
Second.
Okay. I'll call this again. I'll start with Bill.
Aye.
Mike?
Yes.
Anthea?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay. I'm back in action here. Move that we accept with gratitude donations of $190 to the Council on Aging in appreciation of transportation services provided.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote. I will start with Anthea.
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
And I vote yes. Okay. Thank you for that. Now, Chris, if you could give us your town manager report highlights. I know you have made a staff appointment. There's an action for us and any other general topics. I'm not going to give an update on the roads in town or anything else related to today's storm, but the floor is yours, Chris.
You're muted. He might be frozen too.
He might be frozen.
And not because of the blizzard.
Yeah, I asked him to unmute himself. That way he knows. And yeah, I would say he's frozen.
Okay.
Wait.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I can't see anybody. This iPhone is the devil's work. So, all right. Sorry. So I can't see you, but you can hear me, and that's all right. Maybe you can see me too.
Yes.
We have one appointment. It's a new-ish position at the Lynch School. It's designed to take a broader view. The gentleman who's being promoted into it was the head custodian at Lynch and was there during the entire rebuild. So he's intimately familiar with all the operations. And this is kind of a step above that. His job is to really integrate all the elements of the building maintenance. I haven't met with him yet, but he's come highly regarded by Pete and the team. So excited about that. There's no action needed because this is just an internal move. So, and I will let you know that Moody's did affirm the town's AAA rating this past week. We're very excited about that. All my kudos to Stacy and to Ann and to Dan and to the entire financial team and our financial advisors for all their great work on that. So it's exciting to have Winchester's AAA rating renewed. And I've done a flurry of meetings and onboarding But I'll leave that to the report that you have in your hands.
Thanks,
Oh, and
Chris.
I will say, yeah, just the town, since we are in we're in the middle of a snow emergency. So our DPW crews are out there working very hard. As I think everybody knows now, school is closed tomorrow. We are going to be reopening town hall on a delayed schedule at 10 tomorrow morning. Elements that follow the school's closures, like the library and the Jenks Center, will be closed tomorrow. But town hall was planning to open at 10, and we're hoping to have everything fully reopened for Wednesday. Just give everybody a little bit of patience. This was a hard storm. It was a long storm. And there was already still snow on the ground from the last biggie. So there's a lot of work to do. But they're out there working really hard. And if everyone could just, if you have a hydrant in your neighborhood, shovel it out, that would be great. Please stay off the roads unless you absolutely have to be on them. And just be patient with some of the sidewalks. It'll take a little bit to get to some of them.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Chris on his report or other items?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So if anyone in the audience would like to give public comment, please raise your hand and Patty can elevate you to panelist. All right. Seeing none. I know Tom Kennedy is here to discuss building permit fees, but Tom, we're going to jump over that for a minute and go to our outdoor dining policy discussion, which is on our agenda. And in our packet, it's business item number 3. We have, I think Patty would say we're a few weeks behind where we were last year. If you looked at last year's application, the applications were due by basically this week in February. We've not had it on our agenda until tonight. But if we can make some decisions this evening, we are again meeting, I think, next week. So between tonight's meeting and next week's meeting, if we can finalize any changes to that policy, and then we can notify businesses that have already inquired or wish to apply of any of the details. So we have in the packet last year's policy, and I would open up to the board if we want to discuss. I think we always want to nail down the season, sort of start date, end date. If we wish to make any changes to the policy, any changes to the policy in terms of cost per space for the season. So if anyone wishes to jump in with any changes along those lines, please go ahead.
I would say that the way we designed it last year, which was not specific dates, but first Wednesday in May, third Wednesday in October, makes sense. I don't know that we need to make any changes to that.
Agreed. I would just keep it as it is and just update our dates to reflect 2026.
Yep. Okay. The per price space, I think we made some modest adjustments in the last couple of years. Does anyone wish to keep the price, change the price?
I'm okay with the pricing structure as it exists. Michelle and I, the only thing I would say is we do have a lot of work to do in the town center. There's been a lot of construction and a lot of development, and will continue to be. And I think around accessibility, it's a priority probably, but our parking, creating additional parking where we can is important as well. And so I know that we had talked last year a bit about where the money goes from some of these fees, and maybe if we we a few years ago we got a plan that was 10 or 12 million dollars to do work, but maybe if we chip off some of those smaller projects by applying some of these fees and some of the other revenue that we generate from the town center, we can make more incremental improvements rather than biting it all off at once. So that would be my only suggestion, but I would leave the fees where they are.
Okay. So Mike, when we get around to it then, would you wish to maybe make a motion to ask the town manager to, give a recommendation on how much of the fee to direct toward town center improvements or to dust off the town center improvement plan and come back next week with some thoughts on where some of those efforts might be directed? Or would you want to wait until the season is a little bit further underway?
You're muted.
I think the sooner that we get it on the agenda or on the radar, the better. It doesn't mean that it has to be, done next week, but just so Chris knows about it, we're kind of putting a lot of things in his work plan, but as this one comes up, I think going into the spring, there's probably things that we can do just by working with DPW and working with the engineering department that can create efficiencies without having too much additional investment. But some of those funds that come from the parking, probably makes sense for it to be reinvested in that area.
Okay. And the only other thing I think I would want to highlight in the policy is we last year put in the policy, or maybe it was there from before, but to have the outdoor dining space be contiguous to the frontage on the road of the restaurant. Mm-hmm. That is still in the policy. I don't know if anyone wishes to address that. I don't know that we can tighten it up any more than it is, but we want to persist with that policy as well.
I thought it made sense.
Okay. All right. So then we've heard we're going to keep with the first Wednesday in May to the third Wednesday in October, allowing some time for setup so that restaurants can be operational potentially by Mother's Day, and then breaking down after the long weekend in October. So keeping those dates in terms of Wednesdays, keeping the price the same, and no changes to the policy. If we want to make a motion to restart or invite outdoor dining applications, Patty, do we have a date by which we think town management and staff is ready to accept these donations, like these applications? Would you need another week to get the paperwork up to date?
I think Jen probably won't be able to get them out until the end of the week. And they're all ready to pretty much fill it and submit it. So we could technically. So we're meeting on the
Monday the 2nd,
the 16th, and the 30th of March.
Correct.
Do you want to? I mean, that would give them 2 weeks. Do you think that? For them to because I think Jen will just email it to everybody.
Okay.
We could see what comes in and put it on the agenda on the 16th to review them, or we can put it on the agenda on the 30th.
Let's give people until the 30th.
Okay.
Unless anyone on the board disagrees.
That's fine. I would have the deadline for the applicants be
earlier,
the 20th.
Yep.
That gives
the
a
end
full
of that
week for Patty to organize things, or
yes.
Jen to organize things.
Yes. Okay. So with that, if someone wants to wrap up a motion with that application deadline.
Move that we adopt the outdoor dining policy for 2026 as discussed, with the updated dates updated for 2026 on the first Wednesday in May and third Wednesday in October, and the application deadline of March 20th, 2025, which is a Friday.
2026.
2026 at noon.
Second.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Okay, I'll roll call vote this. I will start with Bill.
Aye.
Mike.
Yes.
Anthea.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you. And Chris and Patty, please keep us posted if there's anything we didn't get to in the fine details. We will clean it up on Monday. But that's the season, and the price is unchanged.
And Michelle, I can make
that
additional motion now if you want to.
Go right ahead.
So I move that we evaluate our strategic downtown action plan and I guess, look into how the funds that we generate from downtown parking revenue and from the outdoor dining can be applied to address some of those needs identified in our plan.
And do we want Chris to come back with some recommendations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and for the town manager to report back to us in the coming months.
I'll second that. Okay. Any additional discussion? Chris, any question on what we just tasked you with besides dusting off that plan?
That works for me. It makes, I mean, I will put it in my head for like no later than late April, just so I'm on a timeline, if that works.
Sounds good.
I'm happy to
Okay.
talk to you about it too, Chris.
Any discussion on that motion? All right, I'll roll call vote this one. I'll start with Mike.
Yes.
Anthea?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. Thank you. Look forward to seeing more and hearing more. Okay, then the next topic we will take up until we see Patty, if Pars joins and I don't know, can you please just shout that out so we can try to pivot after whatever topic we're on? And now we will move to the Human Rights Commission bylaw feedback. That was a homework assignment we gave ourselves on February 9th to come back to this meeting with some suggestions or preferences, having looked at some other towns' bylaws, policies, and how they've structured their own human rights commissions. So, Anthea, would you like to hear the feedback first? Would you like to tee it up? I want to turn it over to you, however you want to run this part.
Yeah, I, at the last meeting, asked for any feedback around the bylaw to be shared. So if people have that, I'd be happy to hear it.
Okay. Who wants to go first? I only have a few things. Bill, do you want to go first?
I don't have anything to really say about it. It makes sense to me. Yeah.
Okay. Mike?
Nothing right now. Thank you.
All right. Well, I have two small bits of feedback, so that'll go quickly. I liked, I would say sort of like for me, I like the Stoneham model and the Belmont model. Although to Anthea's point, that's in our packet, most towns do some or all of the same things. One thing I would ask the group to do, Anthea, or maybe you could help them track it down, is to the extent that I think Stoneham's for sure, and maybe others did, but I noted that they do annual reports to the town manager or to the select board or some combination. So to the extent that those are available and maybe in the work product, if that's where the group thinks there should be a report, if there's an outline of what that report might look like. Whether we think that should be a work product on an ongoing basis, it certainly might inform the work of the group as they're building it. So I just want to suggest that if you can get your hands on them publicly, the meeting minutes may be as, a little bit too detailed, but I thought the annual reports, if they exist, would just be a good artifact for the group to review and see what they can learn from.
Right. Sounds good.
Yep. So that was it for me on that topic. So
Tom is here in with you.
Great. Okay. And Anthea, we did appoint everybody last meeting on the working group. And do you want to have this on for an update later in March, do you think? I mean, the warrant will close March 13th, but this could still be select board. So when do you want to have it back on?
Yeah, let's, we meet the 2nd, the 16th, and let's do the 16th.
Okay.
For an update.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So welcome, Paris. Is he there?
No, he's not here.
No, it's Tom that's here.
Tom,
got
sorry.
elevated, not Paris.
Okay. Not ready for you yet, Tom. Sorry, but
I tried.
That's
You
okay.
asked me to bring him in as soon as.
Yes. Okay. Well, so we will, when Paris joins, I think we'll go back up to building permit fees. But for now, then let's go to item number 5, which is overnight parking pilot. Bill, your prediction's like eerily getting close to coming true here. Overnight parking, this really, Mother Nature has a good sense of humor that this is the year we thought we should play with overnight parking during snow emergencies. But Chris and Anthony, I know you both have met, and there's a deliverable in our packet. I will turn it over to whichever of you wants to tee it up, but I appreciate the map and the potential details around this. So I don't know which of you wants to start, but if you'd like to go ahead and present it, please do.
Yeah, Chris, do you want to present the plan that you shared with us?
Sure. So, based on some conversations that Anthony and I had, I went back to talk to Public Works. I talked to Dr. Hackett over at the schools about access to the Morocco lot, and then I met with Chief O'Connell to talk about the logistics. He played around with a map. He carved out. He thought this kind of that northeastern corner that's laid out, which is basically it's Maine, Skillings, Mount Vernon, and then up. I don't have the map in front of me. Not Washington, but the one beyond Washington.
Highland.
Yes, thank you.
Highland.
Which that's Highland was what Costa Town Hall was on. I should remember that name of that street. So it makes that area, and then with the Jenks lot already being there and adding those few spots in Morocco, that should provide some alternatives for folks. Though we do have to define what spaces there are in Morocco. So I have to go back to Dr. Hackett, depending on what the board wants to do tonight. I was hoping that we wouldn't have much more snow, but it's clearly something we're going to test out much more directly than we thought we might. So, but that seems to work. And when there won't be any registration or anything like that. We'll just announce it to people, let people know. And if there's already restrictions on a street, it's not going to be overridden, right? If it says no parking for safety or whatever, those restrictions stay in place. However, if there are no other restrictions, you'll be allowed to park in an area again, except for the couple of major roads where they have to do snow clearance. So. But you'll be able to park overnight except during snow emergencies. So, and we'll see how it works. Now, I after having talked to Chief O'Connell about this a lot, I do think I'd like to revisit this with all of you and maybe do something more broad for the summer and the fall. Maybe do something a little more relaxed, but we can talk more about that if you'd like. And that will give us time based on what we found out for the next couple of months for something more elaborate or more permanent for next winter. So we'll at least have a little more data.
Okay. I'm not going to play around with rotating screens, but the screen is up. I screen shared. It is, as mentioned, Highland Ave to the Woburn line, Skillings Road, also up to the Woburn line, and then down to Mount Vernon Street. So basically Town Hall up to the Woburn line and following Main and Skillings, with parking available at the Morocco School and the Town Center Jenks parking lot. So, okay, I'll stop sharing. I wanted that at least for the recording, if nothing else. So we are hoping to implement this on Sunday, March 1st. I don't know if there's another storm coming, but Chris, what's the best way, or how do we discuss making neighborhoods aware of this?
We could do, I believe we can, to the extent our system allows us, do a targeted call into that neighborhood and let people who are signed up for our reverse 911 know. We can obviously pass this along on social media and on the town's website. And, I think I think with the weather as it is, plus it's a pretty bright area to go door to door, but if there's particular areas where there might be particular challenges, we could try to make sure there's some kind of flyer available for folks that we could distribute in certain areas. And I'll take, Anthony or other members lead on that. We can try to, kind of penetrate this pilot out to people, obviously in person and also on social media. So.
Okay. And I know we want to make sure we take a vote on this. Anthony, anything more we want to consider before we vote to put this pilot into place?
I think it'll be given the weather that we've had, also kind of a good opportunity for a pilot. I was a little worried that we would say we're doing a pilot and we'd get no weather. And so, are we really testing it if we don't have snow? But I think it will be good to sort of be more flexible for folks. And I know one of the concerns was, if people do park there during a snow emergency, I guess it wasn't a concern, but if people do park there in a snow emergency, they should know that, it's more likely that they will be towed, because it's kind of like, this is more serious. You can't sort of abuse the privilege in a way. So that might be a helpful thing to add to the messaging as well, that, this is a pilot, it's allowing on-street parking during the remaining of the winter months. But if there's a snow emergency, like, don't expect that your car will be left alone and buried in a pile of snow, but it may be, get a ticket, you may get towed.
The good news I heard today, there are only a couple of cars towed from this last storm, so I think people have been getting the message pretty clearly not to leave your car, at least on the main streets, right?
Mm-hmm. So Chris, I know that in looking at it, I didn't see this in the write-up, but if there's short of a snow emergency such as we're in right now, from yesterday, today, tomorrow, but other events, lower snow totals, or even road treatments, like to get out and salt and pre-treat, I assume this would allow for cars to be on the roads when DPW salters are out doing treatments. Okay.
That's my understanding. Yeah. I mean, your car will just get hit with a little extra salt, but that's the reality of, even if you're behind a plow, you're going to get that anyway. So.
Okay. All right. And then, Chris, will you be gathering feedback from, I assume the manager's office will be gathering feedback from residents, but also DPW and whoever's out there potentially maneuvering on those. I'm thinking of those icy events and treatments. You'll be getting feedback from Bob and team.
Yes, and also from the police, Chief O'Connell. So we did talk about this a bunch. So I think that they're going to be on top of this too. So
great. All right, those are my questions. Anybody else have any questions?
Just a comment. I think whoever's the one sending out these snow emergency notices is doing a great job. I get 3 or 4 or 10 of them, and there's no way I could ignore it. And then it spreads to all my friends and neighbors. So, keep it up, and I don't think anybody can be surprised.
Mike, any comment? Or Anthea, final comments? All right.
I can make a motion to adopt the overnight parking pilot as presented by the town manager's memo.
Second.
Okay. I'll roll call vote this, starting with Anthea.
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Mike?
Yep.
And I vote yes. Okay. I don't think we can move to building permit fees just yet. We'll wait for PARS. Although maybe we can. Actually, Tom, why don't you, we have the write-up from Tom Kennedy, building commissioner. We have a sort of a background memo, an updated fee schedule, and that was all in our packet. And maybe, Chris, if you want to start with kind of how, I know I handed you a list of a bunch of fees. I know you met with Tom. If there's, if you want to talk about the process and then how you picked the ones that you did. And Tom, if you think these are, appropriate fees relative to the workload and the market. But maybe Chris, if you could start, and then Tom, if you could give us an overview, that'd be great. And hopefully Paris can join close to soon.
Okay. We'll go really slow. No, we're not going to go fee by fee. But so this all comes right out of the state of the town, right? And the charge that the board's given to my office to look at fees and find legitimate new revenue, non-tax revenue. So took a look, and again, Michelle shared with me the materials. I went through it, and then I called in Tom and we talked, and I shared it with him again. I said, "Hey, could you take a real look at this and decide what makes the most sense?" I mean, there was a lot of different options, and take a look at things that might not be on the list, and say, "Hey, what are things that we can do, both from a what's appropriate, what is taking more time now, what is requiring us to put more energy into this, and our costs have gone up." and buildings have become more intricate. I mean, that's just a reality too. The other is, are we keeping pace with are our fees, in the same ballpark? Because we don't want to be too high, obviously. We don't want to be too low. We want to be right in the market. So what's appropriate? Perfect. So Paris is joining us at the most perfect time. So that's what we started. We literally took the work the state of the town had done, talked with Michelle, looked at those materials, and then I sat down with Tom, and so then Tom came back to me, and then I'll turn it over to Tom to say, hey, what did you bring back to me and why? I agreed with it, by the way, which is why it's in front of you tonight. But all the good work that was done on this is Tom's now. So all yours.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
So I think it's a great time to actually look at this. I mean, construction projects have become more complex over recent years. The review process to issue permits are taking longer, inspections are taking longer. You know, what used to take us an hour to review is now taking us 2 hours. What used to take us 30, 40 minutes to inspect is now taking us an hour plus. You know, we have new regulations, the energy code, ADU regulations, solar panels. It's just each and every month that goes by, it seems like the regulations are getting more and more tougher to monitor. So given the complexity of the regulations and a pretty significant initial time that we're spending doing inspections, it seems like a good time to take a look at the fee structure and see where we can come up with some increases. I think I did share the Excel spreadsheet.
Yes, you did.
But I can go through and just explain. The most significant change is the residential permit fee, which will go from $16 per thousand to $17 per thousand. There's a couple ways that building departments calculate fees. One is you take it piecemeal and you do what the construction cost is, what the permit fee, what the electrical, what the mechanical, what the plumbing and gas will cost, and you charge separate fees. I mean, what we do is we roll that all up into a big building permit fee. And then when they go to apply for plumbing, gas, we just charge a very small flat fee. So going from the 16 to 17 really takes a look at all the different trades that are involved in the building process. So that's the biggest change and certainly the biggest revenue driver in the sheet that I provided. Another change that I'm recommending is going from $16 per thousand to $18 per thousand for commercial work. We didn't have a whole lot of commercial work historically here, but it has been creeping up over time. I think the rationale is pretty simple. I mean, when we're doing a residential project, we're in there, maybe a dozen times doing inspections. With some of these larger commercial projects, take, for instance, River Street and Wainwright, we're in there 10, 12 times 150 units. So the time is exponentially more for the larger projects. If anybody has any questions, please stop me. I have a tendency to ramble a bit. So, so that's another change. Mechanical permits. Right now we just have a mechanical permit. Mechanical permits typically consist of two things: one sheet metal, one mechanical. We only have mechanical. Most towns are moving to not a combined fee anymore. They're splitting it with mechanical and with sheet metal. The two different trades require different certification, different license. So it just makes sense, and it really does. From a building code standpoint, we're moving that direction, splitting those two trades. COs, certificate of occupancy. This is basically just reinstating a fee that we've always had in place. But when COVID came around, we stopped charging for certificate of occupancies. We are now going to start, put that back into play. And certificates of inspection, these are the restaurants, churches, daycare, social clubs. Once a year we go out there, we do a safety inspection. Right now, our current fee is $40 per inspection. I'm proposing raising that to $80 per inspection. A lot of time goes into those inspections.
So one question on CO, Tom, is are you considering a different it was 50, we hadn't collected it. Some other towns do 75 for residential COs and 100 for commercial. But are you thinking to just keep it at the flat 50 and not differentiate between the two?
That was my proposal, keeping it at the 50. It's sort of split. I mean, you see towns, seems like a 50-50 split, but there's a lot of towns are doing just the one price.
Okay.
So what would be helpful to understand is why why do 1 to 17 and then 1 to 18. I appreciate we need to move these up. I did some benchmarking a little bit just online. Some of the suburban communities near us are at 15 or 16. All of them are looking at moving that up. Some of the more cities, closer to Boston, like Cambridge and Brookline and others, are at 20. So it seems like the direction of travel we're headed of going to either 17 or 18 is sort of well supported by what our peers are doing. And then there's people in our same market who are higher. So I guess we've generally tried to hold commercial and residential similar. Is there a reason we wouldn't consider going to $18 for both or $17.50 for both? I wouldn't go below 17 on resi because I do think we need the additional revenue. Say we went to $17.50 for both. I think you'd net out ahead, and then we're keeping the commercial at the same level as the residential. Just we're always trying to incentivize more commercial developments in the mixed use projects that are starting to pop up in the center and North Main Street. So then we sort of have parity between the use, whether it's either one. The town is neutral on the two, particularly given that we do have a long-term objective of growing commercial.
I did. I mean, I took a look at a few neighboring towns. I took a look at Lexington, Arlington, and Andover. I tried to benchmark against those two. I mean, we're particularly with the Lexington and the Arlington, a lot of our contractors are doing work in all three of those communities. And frankly, I think we're the 17 and the 18, most of them, Arlington and Lexington, are definitely charging more for commercial work versus residential. And it just, from my standpoint, the work that goes, I realize that we're trying to bring in more commercial work, but the work that goes into these larger commercial projects is there's just a lot of time that's involved from an inspectional services standpoint.
Yeah, Arlington, to your point, is at $20, right, from the residential.
Right. I mean, Arlington, I mean, Lexington. So we're not the
lower, but right. Yeah, but they're looking to raise it too. So
yeah, we're not the lowest, and I guess good news is that we're not the most expensive either. So if you take a look at similar projects, Lexington is about $1,500 for a $100,000 addition. Let's call it in town, which seems to be the what most additions are costing these days. So Lexington's at $1,450, Arlington's at $2,500, Andover's at $1,500, And where we would be with the increase, we would be at 2140. So we're still more expensive than Lexington and Arlington, but I'm sorry, Lexington and Andover, but less expensive than Arlington.
Yeah, and what I would point out is from a tax perspective, Lexington and Andover have the tax shift, right? Meaning they have a higher rate on
They
commercial,
do.
and we don't, and neither does Arlington. So I think Arlington is actually more our peer, because Andover and Lexington have these huge commercial zones, so they have the whole classification shift. So it doesn't surprise me then the building permits are shifted as well. To me, I would go slightly higher on the resi and keep them at parity. I am very supportive though that we need to bring in more revenue here. So I'm definitely supportive of going up, and whether it's $18 for both or $17.50 for both, that would be my view.
It's a very easy change. If we feel that we can go to 18, I can certainly make that change. The one thing I don't want to do, and again, there's a slight risk here that the more you raise fees quickly and not over time, and we haven't raised our fees in a long time, so this will be a shock to our customer base that we're supporting. I just don't want to start having people not pull permits for smaller projects, and we lose revenue that we're gaining right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, as we currently charge somebody 1.6% of their project cost in terms of permits, we'd be going to 1.8% or 1.7%. So it's 1/10 or 0.2%. I don't know how much.
It's a couple $100 on $100,000 project.
Correct. And my point, Arlington's already at 2%, right?
Right.
So.
Okay.
Other questions for Tom, or Tom, is there more you want to share with us?
I just a couple other quick ones. Special permits and variances are going from $40 to $80. It's costing us about $80 with mailings and legal ads for us. So it's certainly not a moneymaker, but at least we're making our money back.
Yeah, we should definitely try to cover our costs. I know we did that with some transfers. We were losing money on disposing of some things. Let's at least break even. Okay. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I have a question. So it seems like it's been 5 years maybe since this was last updated, and I'm wondering if there's going to be an approach for going forward. Is this going to be updated every 2 to 3 years? Is there a plan for, say, in 2029 that everything's going to go up, X percent? Or will it just be kind of a play it by ear for when that needs to happen?
And I think that permit fee should be looked at least once every 5 years. It takes the shock factor away when you raise them. It's just, I think it's good practice to review and adjust accordingly.
And I'm going to encourage us that we look at it more frequently than that. Whether we change them or not, we should at least look at them,
Right.
if not on an annual basis, at least within a couple of years cycle. So we just get in the habit of doing it, so we don't fall out of what the market is bearing, or we don't start losing money on things. Right? That's not the point of the fees, is to cover the costs. So we should be looking at this on a more regular basis, and we're gonna put that into effect. So I'm going to be meeting with Tom and others on a more regular basis to go over these things.
Okay. Bill or Mike?
I'm supportive of not only what Tom has proposed, which is, I think, well researched and well thought, but I also would support a slight increase in certain amounts as suggested by Paris. I think this is just what we need to do for the sake of increasing revenues, like we said we wanted to try to do. And while that is an increase in cost to certain projects, I don't think it's a lot in the larger scope of any individual project, but the aggregate can mean a big deal for the town. So I'm very happy with the floor as proposed, but I'd be willing to explore something a little bit higher too.
Okay. Mike?
I'm supportive of Tom's recommendations here. I think they're good, and we have the ability to change these as well and see how they evolve. But I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to an increase beyond what Tom has recommended. But I think what he has suggested makes sense to me at this point.
So, a question for Tom: if we maintain it right now, you have 17 per thousand residential, 18 per thousand commercial. If you moved everything up to 18, does that make it easier to implement? Is it more complex to have to manage two different fees based on who's pulling the permit right now?
No.
Okay.
No, it's part of our electronic permitting process. So it auto calculates for us. Once we have a new fee schedule, we put it in, and it essentially does the work for us.
Okay. All right. So if there's no other questions, if somebody wants to, we could adopt the recommendations as Tom has, where commercial is paying a slightly higher fee. We can make them both the same, either at 17, 18 or something else, I suppose. But I'll let somebody. I appreciate the work, Tom. I appreciate the effort, and thank you for looking at it. There's a lot here, and certainly we're going to vote to change them. I just don't know where we're going to land as a group, but let's
Tom,
see.
can I ask Tom one final question? I mean, if we, for example, we appreciate the need for the additional revenue, and if I had the view that I wanted to keep the fees the same and we went 1750 each, would that achieve the objectives as you've laid them out to bring in more revenue? And or would you have a recommendation that that's not a good idea? Did we lose time?
I don't. I think Arlington is particularly high, and you make a good point that there's not a whole lot of commercial in there to compensate for some of these fees. $18. Again, I'm a fan of a higher commercial rate, but another dollar is going to bring us in another $80,000-$90,000. It's as simple as that in revenue. If we go to 1818, right now the residential will bring in, I think, let's see. Yeah, $88,000. That will bring us in another almost $90,000 in revenue if we go to 18 on the residential side.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I guess good though.
Yeah, I'm happy to make the motion to adopt what Tom suggested, just with the one modification of taking the residential rate up to 18, equal with the commercial rate.
Is that a motion?
That I will move to adopt what Tom has suggested for updates to our building fees with the one modification of changing the the residential rate to 18 per 1,000, equal to the commercial rate being 18 for 1,000.
Second.
Okay. Additional discussion? Just jump in. I won't call in folks.
The only thing I will add is that if Bill hadn't made the motion as proposed, I would have suggested that we roll this in like 1 to 2 years, that it goes up to 18. But I'm okay with it as it is proposed in Bill's motion.
Yeah, I would like to see where revenue is before we increase the resident piece. And From year to year, the construction changes on the commercial side and the residential side. But what I hear from Tom is this will meet our needs. And I think for these fees, particularly for state law, I mean, that is what the obligation is. There has to be a pretty tight connection between what the needs are of the building department and what the fees are. So that's my only apprehension, and that's why I don't mind increasing a little bit on the commercial side, but I would rather keep it a little bit lower for this year on the residential side.
I don't know that I have a strong opinion either way, actually. I don't want to get into necessarily doing a change for the rest of this calendar year. I'd rather have something for the full fiscal year. So if we land at 18, I think that's where we are from April of 26 through June of 2027, and we have a year's worth of experience with that revenue. Or if we keep it with the two-tiered rate, we'll have a year's worth of revenue for FY27. But if the will of the group is to move it all to 18, we have a motion, we have a second. I'm fine with that. All right. Any additional discussion? Let me roll call vote this then. I will start with Bill,
Aye.
Paris,
Aye.
Anthea,
Yes.
Mike,
No.
okay, and I will vote yes. Okay, so Tom, thank you. We will go to 18 for both. And I think to the extent, Chris and Tom, that we want to make builders aware and homeowners, contractors, whatever, pushing that information out so people are aware the change is coming. That would be great. And please, Tom, let us know through Chris if there's any significant blowback from the trades.
Okay. Is the effective date April 1st?
That's what you proposed, right?
Okay.
Yep.
I put a question mark in there to
Okay.
leave that up for discussion.
So okay, let's discuss that then, select board. What would we like the effective date of this change to be?
I mean, my understanding was it was April 1st or thereabouts.
That was the proposal. Tom, are you suggesting it would be better to do it on July 1st to give some time for people to adjust, or?
No, I'm just looking for clarification. April 1st is fine with me.
Okay. So let's officially vote that then. That was your recommendation, but let's make that clear for Tom then.
Okay.
So go ahead, Bill.
Move to institute the rates as just voted, effective as of April 1st, 2026.
Okay. I'll roll call this. Thank you, Anthea. I'll roll call this one again. I'll start with Paris.
Yes.
Anthea.
Yes.
Mike.
Sorry, yes.
Bill.
Aye.
And I vote yes. Tom, anything else that we can provide clarity on, or do you want us to vote?
I want you to vote.
No, we just did. So
I know.
Okay. Just want to make sure there's no other loose ends that you want to make sure we
there's nothing else.
Okay. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for the work. Thank you, Chris, for running with this. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. All right. Have a good night.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Okay. Powering through our agenda this evening. Next up is the Mystic tenant lease. Thank you, Patty, for tracking down the original lease from 2017, 2018, and the most recent update. Chris, I'm going to start this with a question for us to make sure we're rounded correctly. This current lease that the Kids Corner is operating under expires June 2026. The tenant has the option for 2 one-year renewals. As the landlord, do we have that same right to exercise a 1-year renewal at the same terms? I'm trying to understand what do we need to do with this tenant, or does the tenant need to tell us their desire to stay in this space?
So the way and again, I'm not playing town council, but I did look at the lease, and I think they need to express an interest first. I mean, but when I toured Mystic last week, I met the gentleman who runs the program, and he said he would be in touch with me, but we didn't talk any more than
Andrew.
that. It was just hello, yeah,
Okay.
Andrew. We said hello. That said, I think the board is you can amend the terms of the lease as well. I mean, I think that the 3-year extension that was granted by the school committee kind of changed the renewal. I think it kind of changed the renewal a bit. That said, you're not bound by the every single term and clause in this. I mean, you can always go back and say things have changed. We need to look at things. That's one of the things I'll look for some clarity from all of you as to what things we might want to take a look at.
Okay.
So what's the question before us, Michelle? Do we want to amend it?
Yep. So there's a few questions before us. So I was just going to go there. I think we have, for tonight, I think it's a discussion, maybe not a vote, but we have a tenant that lots of folks in town use, and we have a lease that we inherited, which we did not negotiate. So we have the opportunity to change the terms, increase the cost on an annual basis, 2.5% or some such thing. We have an opportunity to change the terms and have the tenant participate in, utilities or some allocation of energy use for that space. So we have the option to not renew the lease, though I don't know that would be wise to do to a longstanding after school program. But I'd like to see, based on the fact that when we took over the building at fall town meeting, we inherited the lease. We now have an obligation to, execute a lease if the tenant wishes to stay and we wish to have them. We need to have it written down and those terms iron out. We will have Chris, I think, be our point of contact on this. But if there are terms in the lease that we would like to either negotiate with the tenant or discuss as a board, that's where I'd like to be tonight. Are there any pieces of it that people want us to, do some comparison, talk with Nick, talk with Andrew, Andrew at Kids Corner, maybe Nick at the rec. Is there anything that we want them to chase down for us that would guide that decision? Because there's an escalation sort of, schedule that's in there. Would we change that escalation schedule? Would we keep it? That's where I think that's what I want to have in front of us tonight and see where we are as a group. So with that, I will let others jump in.
Before this continues, I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion and any vote on this because not only do I have a child who's in the Kids Corner program, but my spouse is on the board of directors for Kids Corner. So for fear of any conflict of interest, I'm not going to participate in this discussion or any vote.
Okay, appreciate that, Bill. Who would like to go first?
The only thing I would know, and I mean, it looks like a standard lease. It's a nonprofit. I don't think we're looking to try to maximize revenue here. The only question is, are there any pain points with rec with regard to Kids Connection that we should understand from our director, either directly or via the town manager, and try to solve in this conversation with them? So that would be my question to town department head and town manager. Beyond that, I'm happy to take their advice.
Anthea, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, I would say what I don't see in here is there's no proposed annual rent for the next 2 option years. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I think we should keep it fairly in line with what it was there before. And I say that because I'm not a lawyer, but as I read this, we would have had to give them 6 months notice of termination. So I wouldn't want us to say, well, we're giving you, 4 months notice that your rent is suddenly, surprisingly higher than it was before for the next years. And it looks like it has gone up 1,500, for the 1,600 and 1,800. So, going up by about 2,000 and then 2,200 for the following year might be about right for providing that to them.
Mike, any questions?
No, I'm all set. I agree with Anthea though on her point. So that's all I have.
Okay. So, Chris, I have a few questions, which is what is the price per square foot of this space, including the primary space, or what's the square footage? We can figure out the price. That's the first floor, and then shared use of the gym, some other shared spaces. So, how many square feet is that? I would be curious what our energy costs were for the building. And the third item, and maybe Andrew at Kids Corner has this, maybe Andrew at the schools has this. What do the Kidsborough programs charge? What are they charged for rent? The Kidsborough programs that are operated out of our elementary schools. I'm curious how now a Kidsborough program at a newer elementary school is probably not the same facility as the Mystic School. No knock on that building, but I'm curious what the kind of market is for after school programs that are operated out of current schools or former schools. So if you could track that down, Chris. To Anthea's point and to Mike's point, I don't think you go from $3,000 a month to $5,000 and $8,000 a month, but I am curious, kind of like we just had a building permit fee discussion about what is comparable and what's reasonable with the market. I'd like to understand what the price per square foot is, how that compares to what Kidsborough pays, and what energy costs we have for that building. Those are my three questions, Chris, if you could track those down.
I got everybody's comments.
Okay. Do you have any questions on our questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Anything else people want to ask Chris to chase down or rec through Nick and the rec to chase down? Chris, if you could perhaps communicate with Andrew at Kids Corner that these are some of the questions that we have. We have to have this finalized 60 days, so we have to get to some terms in March because 60 days would get us into April. I know we'd have until maybe the end of April, but we should make sure that there's an interest that they wish to stay. They probably want to have a sense of where we might be leaning in terms of a price increase. Not that we have a clear range here, but we do have some questions. And we'll try to get this on an agenda, ideally, I think maybe March 16th. If Kids Corner is ready to commit, or they want to understand the terms, and then we have to come back with some terms. So if you could report back to us on what their interest is, and then let's see if we as a select board can come up with some terms on our March 16th meeting.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Anything else for anybody? I know, Bill, I won't call on you, but Paris, Anthea, and Mike. All right, hearing none. Now we're on to business item number 7, town manager goals. So in addition to our Human Rights Commission homework assignments, we also had town manager goal homework assignments. And the assignment was to go through the town manager performance review and identify areas of potential goals for the manager for the period of March to September. We need to do a performance review, kind of a mid-year performance review in that September-October timeframe. So wanted to ask if people had areas of goals that we wanted to give Chris, or if people are actually wanted to coalesce around some specific goals. So framing our conversation in terms of achievable goals. And I don't know who wishes to start. I made some notes, but I can go last as I usually do.
I had a couple, so I'm happy to start.
please. Thank you.
So I sort of loosely sketched out four. One was around, I think it was A, board support, which was just effectively communicates with select board members, both as a group and individually, providing clear communication on key issues and highlighting issues or concerns. The second was around leadership and staffing. Fills open roles within an appropriate time frame and hire staff who meet requirements. That's a fairly high level, but I didn't see that exactly within the evaluation that we have. And for budget financial, budgets effectively based on the outcome of the override and carefully evaluates needs and risks when updating the town budget. And then I think G is the last one, of integrity, that shows an understanding of the town's bylaws, charter, and similar documents, and provides creative approaches to handwriting I can't read of my own. I think it was creative solutions to challenges.
You actually said,
I typed it for you. That's right.
yes,
Look
you
at
did.
that.
Thank you, Patty.
Shows understanding of town's bylaws, charter, etc., and provides creative approaches to challenges that arise.
Okay. Thank you.
Look.
So those were
Okay.
the few that I had jotted down.
So my, I'll just go next because if
Sure.
that's okay, because mine were quite similar. And as I had said, I think when we met in the classroom at the middle school, I think the quantity of goals in that broader rubric are things we can leg into over time, but would be overwhelming and frankly impossible to assess all in a 6 or 7 month period of time. So mine were similar. The three thematics were sort of board support, staff leadership, and financial management. And we can synthesize this all and wordsmith it with what Anthea said and what others have to say. But board support would be a lot of the things Anthea mentioned in terms of working with the board as a collective, working with the board as individuals, helping to achieve the policy goals that the board has laid out clearly. Staff leadership, I agree with the filling vacancies and all that. I think just broadly, we can talk about how to measure this. The management and mentorship and leadership of departments and department heads, sitting down with them, coming up with their metrics, what they're accountable for, having those regular conversations, creating collaboration among departments and fostering collegiality, that whole set of really leading town hall. So one is with us, one is with the team, and then the third one is financial management. And so the clearest piece of that, of course, is the FY 2027 budget, and we'll know which way we're going in a few weeks, but also just that process and getting the board's input on all that, and then ultimately presenting that at town meeting. And then, very much relatedly, that's for the near term, the 1 year period, to attack a bunch of the cost and revenue items that we've been discussing and we talked about last time we met. And Chris and I have continued to talk about some of those. So we've set out some big goals there and continuing to drive that. So those would be my three categories, and a little bit of depth into what in each of them: board, staff, and financials.
Okay. Bill, you want to go next?
There's nothing that I would say that has not already been said, so I won't bother repeating.
Okay. Mike?
No, I'm good. Thank you. I think we've covered a lot of territory here. Appreciate it.
Okay. The only thing I would add, which maybe is not a fair 6-month goal for Chris, but I think it ought to be a goal that we get to, and the manager gets to. I think it kind of goes back to state of the town powers, which is, in going through municipal needs, municipal asks, it would be nice if, and we can decide if this is achievable or not, but for the manager to really work on creating a vision for your municipal operations, municipal functioning, sort of town departments? Where do we wish to be? What do we need? What might things look like? I'm not suggesting this is a reorganization of the organization, but where is Chris seeing gaps, needs? Where would things grow or align? Where do you see operations going? So maybe that's a next year or post 6 month goal, but it'd be nice. Select board can do some goal setting, but I'm not sure that we would do, maybe we would, but we've never done a 5-year visioning session. Certainly schools seem to do them about every other year. It'd be helpful if the manager took the lead on, aggregating thoughts and compiling thoughts from department heads and articulating a vision that he may have. So I would just put a pin in that for a later point, but that would fall under planning and organizing. So I wanted to pick one off from that category.
So why not include it now? I agree with it very much. I think it's a great one. And just understanding that we won't, because we may not have anything to talk about or evaluate in 6 months, but obviously I think you're right that you want Chris to spend time on that in the next 6 months, even if we may not have anything really tangible for a year. So it could just be included as a goal, just not one that we're going to evaluate against in the fall.
And you could frame it as some level of like making progress doing so. So, identifies a process for creating a vision and has a timeline in place for, documenting and bringing it to fruition. So kind of making it an interim step on that.
Okay. So I had other goals around financial management, but I think you others have completely hit on those. And the other area I would like, but I'm not sure yet, I think it rolls up a bit with creative solutions to challenges that arise under G that Anthea articulated, but also just problem solving and decision making. I don't know that I have, solve 10 problems, right? I mean, Chris might do that in the space of a week. But I think that's another area that I'll be looking at. And I think we hope to experience, because Chris will be cutting off some problems before they get to us. But I'm not sure I want to put a number to it, 5 of those and 6 of those. But that's just another area that I'll be looking to see, just ongoing, effective management and creative problem solving. So those were my goals. Do we want to then, Anthea, you sent yours to Patty. Paris, do you want to send yours to Patty and I can send mine? And then Patty, could you put those back in our packet for next week? Is that how the group would like to work through it and perhaps coalesce around a half a dozen goals for Chris? And maybe some have September, we put some timelines on 5 or 6, and we have some others that might go beyond that September goal, but we want to see progress. Is that how the group wants to work through it and agree on some things?
Happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think also, to hear from Chris if what we've kind of loosely drafted this evening are logical and make sense, or if there's something that we've totally missed that he sees as a critical piece of the work.
So I think that you've hit a lot of key things, and I do think that in a fairly limited time span, you've also led us some very specific objectives in the last couple of meetings that that said some of it all is also just the kind of the day-to-day stuff that you'll assess and advertise. I've engaged with all of you to one extent or another on various things, and I'll continue to do all of that. So you'll all be observing and discussing, and this is it's an ongoing process, right? I mean, the whole point of this is that we're all engaging, and there might be something that pops up, an opportunity or something, and that becomes something that we're not talking about specifically tonight. But I think the big overall arching points you made are critical to the job. And dealing with the board, dealing with staff, and managing the budget. I mean, there's a lot of other attributes to go into the position and the goals you may have for it and the goals I have for it, including the, visioning for the future. I think there's things I've already had some preliminary conversations with all of you about, and I have some thoughts that I'll kind of try to coalesce as I do more assessments of staff and resources. And some of this will depend on what happens in the next couple of weeks, what kind of resources are available. But I think there's some really, some things that grow out of the state of the town, some things that grow out of the experience I've had in the past that I think will be all positive. And I'll be part of the conversation I'll have with you over the next few months. But overall, yes, I think these are all very fair. And as you coalesce around things that are a little more specific, I think it makes a lot of sense.
All right. And then before we move off this goal, this might be a good time when we're almost done with Chris's feedback, then we also want to, I think, wrap up select board goals after our override conversation on February 12th and communicating those, because there's, as Chris mentioned, there's some tasks for him. But we also tasked ourselves with a summary of commitments and decisions that we'd made. So before we move to that, any more feedback on town manager goals? Patty, you will compile, put it back in our packet for Monday the 2nd. Chris, to the extent that, please do take a look at it and come prepared. You'll see those things all written down. Come prepared on, this isn't negotiating. I don't want to do that goal, but maybe there's more realistic words and more realistic ways to make those achievable. We certainly want to make sure we have your feedback on the 2nd so that there's clarity on the goal. It's achievable and we all understand what we're asking of you. We can know what we think we mean. It's more important that you understand what we mean. So we'll get, hopefully nail that down for March 2nd. Okay. And then Paris, I'll start and then please take it away. So we, out of our meeting, said we'd come back this evening with a draft that we hope to get to residents, potentially published out on Wednesday, relative to wrapping up the state of the town, documenting where we landed on the override, kind of how we arrived at the numbers that we did, and some of the specific actions that we agreed to take as a board. So Paris and I, over the weekend, or I guess late last week, went back and forth on a deck that will get shared, and then a memo, I think, to residents that hopefully can explain some of the thinking. So Paris, I know we want to get some feedback this evening, and I'm going to just turn it over to you. But that was the goal, kind of tied into our own goals that inform Chris's goals.
Yeah, I think you said it very well, Michelle. So it was the last motion of the night on Thursday was to have Michelle and I prepare a 3 to 4 page, and being closer to 4 with the signature block and the heading at the top, open letter to the community to summarize the plan and all of its regards. Where is Winchester today? Where are we financially? What have we agreed on in terms of an override number? How long we think it'll last? What's in it? And then what is the impact from a tax perspective on residents? So that's all laid out in short format in the letter, and then signature block for all 5 of us. I thought I think it was Mike had the point of we should all sort of put our names on it, which I agree with. And then the pack is the detailed version of the same. So it's with section breaks and the cover and all that, it's 40 pages. I think it's really closer to 32 or 33. I think pretty much all of it is stuff people have seen before. By the way, this is in everyone's inbox. I sent it at 2:30, so everyone should be able to see that. Michelle and I were working on it this morning, and I sent it shortly after that. So
you can also share it if you like.
Yeah, sure, if you want to, like Patty. So this deck is, I think people have seen, certainly all of the content has been seen. The vast majority of the pages you've seen either at briefings or at our meetings or at the town meeting or all of the above. We made a handful of extra pages, like what did we choose to do on capital, for example, page 17. We had to make de novo some of the things on non-property tax revenue. We wrote out a little bit more, clearly and with more specifics than we had before. And then obviously we had to update a bunch of the pages because we had a single final number rather than a range of 3 or 4 different numbers. So it all lands to a specific point now in terms of tax impact or the annual growth or various things. So this is 11.5 million phased in 50-50 instead of 70-30. I think that's about it. I mean, I think we need to take a final proofread of it, sort of copy edit of it, but all the content should be there and it should be in pretty good shape. I caught a typo or two and I was glancing at it later, but we wanted to put it in front of the board as we promised we would do, and also to have folks have the ability to send edits or comments or whatever.
I think what's most important is that the letter that we're asking us all to sign, that people are comfortable with. Yeah, I think it reflects the conversation we had on the 12th. It reflects, where we landed. Just want to make sure that people are comfortable with the way we've packaged that up. We're trying to distill it down for residents and trying to distill, just months and months of work. But I think if you're to focus on one document, that would be the one.
Right. It very good point. The pack is very similar to the letter, just with more detail. Even the flow of it they match each other.
I haven't had a chance to read them closely. I went straight from a deposition to shoveling this afternoon, but I can commit to getting you any feedback by lunch tomorrow if that's okay.
Sounds great.
And I'm
The
guessing
only
it's great.
sorry, I'm not shushing you, Bill. I have a 5-year-old in my ear. The only question I have is, I know 4 pages is a long memo, and I wonder if there's any way to put like either a half page, quarter page, 1 paragraph exec summary, bullet points at the top, or to try to shorten it down a bit, just so that people will, please be quiet for a second, so that people will have a little bit more focus when they're reading it.
We could probably shorten it a bit. With the signature block and the opening sort of space for the stationery, it's probably more like 3.5. We could probably get a bit out of it. I mean, part of it is there is just a lot to explain to folks. I appreciate your comment. It's there is just a lot to get, and people have asked repeatedly, can we have the total, like, do you have a short form of the plan in its totality that we could read? So that's what this was supposed to be. We could probably take another shot at it and get a little bit of the wording out. I don't think it's going to come down a lot, though. It might come down a little bit. We could also, for example, jettison maybe the opening section of the town's status today or something. So happy to try that, Anthea.
Okay. Mike? All right. So edits back ideally through Patty tomorrow. That makes sense. And then Patty, Anthony, and I will see you Wednesday for agenda planning. We can sit down, talk through those. Paris and I can skinny it up, but I think if what you're going to see, what we may do is really shorten the intro to, what is Winchester known for. So if what goes out is like slightly shorter because some of that intro language is gone, you should maybe expect that. But if there's any other questions on the substance of what we did or where we landed, please get that in, if you could, to Patty tomorrow. Yeah. And Patty, does that work with your day? I don't want to task you with.
Yes, it's fine.
Okay.
Because I won't probably see any changes until later in the day, so I'll be in the office. But I've been working from home all week, and getting stuff done. So my question would be, is that do you also want to put it on the first page, have it letterhead?
Yes.
Yes, I think we do.
Okay. And it will only be on the first page. I have it set up to
Yes. Yeah, just on the first. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so Bill, I think you're good with, you're going to send some comments. Anthea, I think we'll try to tighten up. I think we have some ideas of where we can condense a bit. That's a good push. Um, Mike, any things you'd like to see changed on it, or?
No, not at all. In fact, it was really much better than I was really suggesting when uh, the last week. And so thank you very much. I know it's a lot of work that you and Michelle put into this, and I think it's a good reflection, a good document for us to have in future years. And also going into the override, I think it helps kind of cogently explain what the direction is and what the strategy is. So thank you very much. I don't have, outside of a couple typos here and there that I'm sure you all came across, I don't have anything to add. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right. So we are record time getting to the last item of our agenda, which is town meeting warrant articles. I know we don't have a shell necessarily, but we had discussed some in our meeting on the 9th in that classroom. I had teed up some capital articles related to the culvert, related to the reservoir. We have potentially a Human Rights Commission bylaw, solar panels, stabilization funds. Did people want to, I can make sure for the second that we have those draft warrant articles in a better format, but did people think about any additional warrant articles that we want to consider as a board to bring forward? I know we want to coalesce with capital planning on potentially, co-sponsoring the flow study on Everett Ave culvert and any, punch list items on the reservoir project. But is there anything else that folks want to make sure is on the radar? Because I do have the list from the 9th, but Chris and I didn't have a chance to put them into kind of article format for this evening's packet.
So sorry, Michelle. Do you mind reading those again? There was a good number from there.
Yep. We have the Everett Ave culvert flow study engineering. We have the South Reservoir Dam punch list items. We had the Human Rights Commission, which I think Anthony will be on point for, stabilization funds, solar panels. And then as I'm saying this out loud, Bill had also mentioned there were a couple of bylaws, but one Bill had mentioned was potentially putting the decennial review with, I think, Bill, was it a third, and a third, or 5 articles a year or some?
Yeah, rolling. I think it's one or two every town meeting.
Not 5. Fair enough. Do we want to keep a placeholder for that? Because I remember we did have a bylaw that we. Do you want to keep a placeholder for the packet to consider that, discuss it as a group?
I think so. With the decennial review one, I've sent my prior memo off to Karis to get her feedback on it. I don't want to move forward unless our town council thinks it's a good idea and says it's lawful. But I think that all makes sense. And just to focus for a second on the Everett Avenue one, because I got some phone calls from capital planning about it. They are really looking for guidance from us in terms of how we want to approach the larger issue of the Everett Avenue culvert. I think the large idea is, are we, behind the idea of doing the flow study right now to figure out what the engineering or larger project then has to be? Because if we all remember, there are many different ways of approaching this, but it didn't seem like we had a full understanding as to what needed to be fixed prior to fall town meeting this past year.
Okay.
I had just 2 very quick things. One is the on the decennial review point, Bill. It may be helpful to loop the GovRegs in, and so they're at least aware of it. Hopefully.
Yep.
But just so we're not sponsoring it and they have no idea it's coming.
No, just waiting for town council first.
Yep, perfect. And then Michelle, was this small one that I had sent over, and there had been a chain with Stacy and Chris and Aaron
trust
on
funds.
it.
Yeah.
Say again.
Was it the trust funds?
No, the trust funds, I think, is stabilization. I mean, there's two parts of stabilization, right? There's transfers into general stabilization, and there's management of. Oh, actually, no, we should. You're right. It's slightly
Separate
different.
them. Yeah.
There's management of the OPEB trust fund, but
Yes.
there's that one, and then there's the other one, the same group of people, which is around the lodging, the short-term rental tax, which
Yes, you did.
maybe
Yes.
20. I think we had a running bet of is it 10,000 or 20,000 or
I'm at
30,000.
30,000.
You're at 30. Yeah, we'll see what it is, but it's some number greater than 10 and less than 50. So might as well grab it.
Okay. All right. So we need to make some time for that. Certainly on next week's agenda, there'll be, and Bill, if you hear back from Karis, we'll just have a placeholder in there, high level for decennial review, and whether or not we know more by Monday, we'll just keep it on until we take it off.
Sure.
Or choose to keep it. Okay. I think that's it for tonight's agenda. For the business agenda, we do have a consent agenda item. But if anyone thinks of any warrant articles that are kicking around, there are some citizen petitions that are coming in. There is, I believe, Chris, you and I saw an update from the town meeting time working group, whatever version of the working group they are called. There's potentially 3 or 4 bylaw changes coming out of that group. So it seems like ticking and tying from that appendix. So we're going to have, I mean, if we have 6 or 8 and 3 or 4 citizen petitions and 4-ish state of the town bylaw changes, we're going to have a pretty robust warrant. That's okay. That's how the work gets done. Just wanted to level set with folks. That's what we're hearing as of last week. And Chris, anything else that you have that you're hearing about through the grapevine on bylaws or warrant articles or any of the like?
No, but I've just heard some talk about some citizen petitions, but we haven't seen them yet officially. And then that whole town meeting time discussion that's finalizing, and that working group. I think there'll be several coming out of that, right?
Yep.
Do we have a consensus on that yet? We don't need to open a can of worms here, but is it at a point where everyone's going to agree, or is it going to be another?
The impression I've been given is that everyone's kind of in agreement. That's what council told me, and I'll see her. Council's in on Wednesday for some office hours for folks, so she'll be in with staff on Wednesday. So if I don't talk to her before in person, I will definitely talk to her in person on Wednesday. So
it's a good question, Paras, and Karis has been attending, but I've not, obviously. But I think that's a fair question. If we can make sure that that's my sense as well, is that people have coalesced around the change. But if Karis could perhaps give you, Chris, a stronger sense of that, that would be helpful.
Yep.
And we expect that the sponsor will be that committee, or Karis should give advice if it should be that committee or the committee on rules, because the committee on rules is what governs the town meeting. It would be important to have the right sponsors on that.
If they need us to do something, if they could just tell us very soon, that would be helpful, because it created a little bit of a kerfuffle last time.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, we can go to our consent agenda and then adjourn.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as posted for Monday, February 23rd, 2026.
Second.
I'll do a roll call vote. I will start with Mike.
Yes.
Bill.
Aye.
Paris.
Aye.
Anthea.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. This one I'll just say all those in favor.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, WinCam. Thanks, Patty. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
And if you're going back out to shovel, good luck, and see you all somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Have a
Michelle.
good night.
got it, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.